check for my first idea was 4.0. First business referral as me as an entrepreneur was to an organization named Camelback. Met Aaron, heard the glowing reviews from Jess and Evan, and so the rest is history. What's really special bringing it to the present day is that they have a fantastic and amazing CEO, Shauna Young. We've been on a number of conversations. Yeah, clap it up for Shauna. She's in the building. I think last time we talked, she was in Boston. I don't know if y'all saw the news, but you know, white things was falling from the sky in Boston. So what it took for you to get here, we appreciate you, Shauna. But joined with Shauna today, we have Natasha and we have Kwame, two entrepreneurs who are building their ventures from New Orleans. And so, and I didn't mention, a huge reason why this moment, this conference, the playground exists from a support and sponsorship and partnership perspective is because of Camelback. And so, yes, and the important part about that, to be honest with you, was, and I think maybe I learned this when we were on the call, Shauna, but like, you know, what stuck with me was, and she's not, Nicole's not in here because she's, you know, hero type, you know, y'all was, oh, there we go. So what was beautiful is I was on the Zoom and Shauna was like, you know, forget what you talking about, Brian. We trying to support Nicole. Because Nicole's a CEO and it's important for us to support each other. And it was an unequivocal, unapologetic, no flinching, no hesitation. Shauna.
Thank you so much. I want to start with gratitude. Brian started us out with the story I was going to somewhat tell. I want to thank Nicole for having a vision and bringing that here to New Orleans, both of our homes, when it comes to our businesses and what we do. You know, when Nicole sent an email out about her first year in the seat of 4.0, and it was so thoughtful, and she talked about playground. And then I got to meet Brian. I said, well, what is your goal? How much are you trying to raise? I said, well, I can't give you all that. But I want to name that the first time we did a large sponsorship was for this, for us. Because I felt like as an alum of 4.0 and having the unique privilege at this moment in time to have the resources to do something, it had to start where we started. And I named that because I believe if there's ever a time to build and to give deeply for our own communities, we have to do that right now. And I didn't know the full vision. I believe in Nicole, and Brian had all kinds of thoughts. But I just knew that something special was going to be in the room, and we wanted to be part of it. So I want to thank you all for coming and supporting Nicole. We are proud alum of 4.0 as Camelback, but I'm also a proud alum of 4.0 because Nicole and 4.0 said yes to Mosaic, one of the organizations that I'm a co-founder of, that we just started like less than 2 years ago. So literally first check, $5,000, which made a huge difference when we are literally self-funding what we believe will be the next generation of a career accelerator for young people of color. And so those first checks mean so much. I am honored to be on stage with you, Natasha and Kwame, because they are going to share about their journey as entrepreneurs. And I'm excited about uplifting their stories here as New Orleans-focused entrepreneurs. So I'm not going to take too much stage presence on that, and I want them to share who they are, what they're building, and often we say, what problem are you solving for? We want to frame that differently and say, what are you innovating for? How do you see the world different because of what you're building?
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you Playground for inviting me. My name is Natasha Pittman, and I am the founder and executive director of Nurturing Roots, the parent academy here, located in New Orleans, Louisiana. We are a group of Black women, educators, mothers, parents who are solving and being innovative in solving for school push-out, the school to prison pipeline, which is very relevant. Oftentimes as an educator, I hear what families have to say and what educators have to say in terms of our children. And we are solving to keep our kids in school, focusing on the mental, the social, emotional aspect of our children, and we do that by centering our parents. We have 2 programs, which is the Parent Partnership for Learning, where we invite our parents in for 6 weeks, and we teach them how to navigate the education system. We teach them about executive functioning, adverse childhood experiences. We teach them all things that the educators want them to know about their children as it relates to what's happening in school. And then we also offer literacy circles, because there is a huge literacy gap, here in the United States and in Louisiana. And so we kind of bring it back to, the 20s and the 30s where, Black folk would get together and gather and read and have conversation. So we centered that program around that. And so we are in year 3, and, I'm super excited to be here. Come on now. But yes, we're in year 3, and I'm a 15-year educator. I'm a mother. I live here. I work here. I serve my community here. And so I am super proud of the work that we're doing. My co-founder is an educator as well. And so we are here, boots to ground, doing the work, and, we're excited about it. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Kwame Terra. I'm the CEO and founder of Bear Health. We're a startup company based here in New Orleans, committed to maximizing health in the Black community. I just want to give a shout out to Camelback real quick. Since the fellowship started 2 weeks ago, I've been invited to speak on 2 or 3 panels. This is the first one, and so just shout out to Camelback, kind of standing on what they said they're going to do to uplift founders. So, so founded the company here in New Orleans. I was also born here in New Orleans. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Ultimately came back here to go to came back here to go to Xavier University of Louisiana, where I was studying pre-med. Early on, I was introduced to research and started to develop an appreciation for solving problems from the root of the issue, as opposed to treating problems in the clinic. Went on a 5-year journey of finding myself after I graduated. That brought me about to the pandemic, where I received a text message from my aunt that said, "Hey, Kwame, I think this would be a great time for you to kick off your healthy eating initiative again, because the disparities are at the forefront. I want you to focus primarily on the Black community, but everybody can benefit from it, and ultimately that's what has led to Bear Health." So our goal at Bear Health, first and foremost, was to communicate clearly to the Black community our current health status. The whole country is suffering as it relates to our health, but particularly in the Black community, we see these disparities that I really regard them as an emergency. Every day, a Black person is dying before they should. And so I treat the problem, and I treat every day of work as if I'm addressing an emergency. So that's the first goal: communicate clearly to the Black community our current health status. We do that through a health score, kind of like a credit score, but for your health. I wasn't the first person to think of that, and thankfully, because then I would have had to come up with an algorithm and all that stuff, and didn't want to have to deal with that. I partnered with a company, and they've since invested about $250K into our business. That was a cold email outreach to get our product developed and shared. And last point of the story before I pass it back to Shauna, 2 weeks after I started came up with the idea, the track and cross-country coach at Xavier University of Louisiana reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in going to school because he'd pay for it if I coached. So I ran cross-country and track at Xavier, and so the coach was familiar with me, knew I was in the city. I wasn't planning to go to school at the time, but Xavier had also just released a master's in public health with a concentration in health equity. And so the 2 years I was in that program more or less refined this idea and been building it now full-time for 3 years.
I'm definitely a proud mama this weekend. Thank you, Nicole, for creating this space, or at least auntie. So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship in New Orleans. And we know that it takes shape in multiple verticals, but not always in education or in what you're building here in health tech. Can you tell a little bit about why you chose to build here in New Orleans, your venture? What has been surprising in terms of helpful or just something different than you thought? And then what are some of the challenges that we should know about as you're still building your ventures?
So I chose to build my company here really because I just moved back here at the time. So I was living in San Francisco for a year. I worked for United Airlines. My dad had worked for United Airlines my whole life, so I always got to fly for free. But when I turned 26, they cut me off. It was the first job I actually got that I planned to keep for an extended period of time. But anyway, I worked in San Francisco for a year, moved back to New Orleans after that year because I wanted to be kind of centrally located. Pandemic hit, and then started my program at Xavier. I really stayed in New Orleans because of my relationship with Xavier. I was given basically an office on campus for free from the Entrepreneurship Institute at Xavier, where over the past 3 years, me and my students have been building Bear Health. We've facilitated probably at this point about 70 student internships over the past 3 years. The public health department requires students complete 400 hours of internship hours to graduate. And so we've been able to facilitate that and with them providing us that space for free. There's a mass comm department downstairs. Content is a big thing. Shouted out my camera when I was coming up here. That camera is actually from the Xavier University of Louisiana mass comm department. And so it's just, that's really where all my resources and my network was, and I think that's important, especially as an under-resourced founder, to leverage everything that you have to grow. And so the challenges have been, I think, maybe the same as challenges for Black founders throughout the country. Not many people are writing checks for Black founders, and so thank God for incubator and accelerator programs. I remember the first month of going all in on Bear in January 2023. I applied to maybe 20 investor kind of pitch deck funnels. Nobody responded. Well, I think one person responded, but they said no. And so then I completely pivoted to applying to startup accelerator and incubator programs. And so I applied to, in 2023, probably 80 accelerator and incubator programs. We've gotten to 8. So that was great. We raised 80 grand. I was like, oh, my first year I raised $80,000. I wonder if I can do more next year. And then we got into a program that we had gotten denied by the previous year. Raised, I think, $200,000 in our second year. Most of my money has come from outside of New Orleans. We've raised just over $550,000 now, and 15 of it, well, up until Camelback. Is Camelback considered money from New Orleans? Okay, let's go with that. So 65,000 of the 550 has come from New Orleans. So money's out there, just not as much of it is always here.
So for myself, like I said, I live here, and I serve my community here, and I think what has surprised me the most, being an educator, a 15-year educator, is the school push-out that we are seeing within our city, specifically in New Orleans, year 23-24. Over 5,000 students were suspended and expelled. And so that became a normal thing for parents and families, especially post-Katrina. Those are some of the things that really surprised me, but even more so, I think what surprised me here in New Orleans is the support in the community who actually want to solve the problem. And so, like I said, New Orleans it's a beautiful city. Culture, the people, the history, everything about New Orleans is just, we love it. But there is this underbelly of broken systems at play sometimes, and that many people don't get a chance to see it. So I'm in the schools every day, serving the community on the weekend, and I noticed that there is just this fracture of relationships as it relates to stakeholders in education between the community, families, and schools. And so we are actively working to bridge that gap between stakeholders, because any educators in the building, I think you can attest that some of the children, some of our babies aren't well. We live in a time where our children are, they're suffering from lots of things that are going on. The world is on fire, and oftentimes our families don't know that their children are suffering. And as an educator, I see it every day. I see how they show up to school wanting to, just to be hugged or to be loved, or, just not knowing how to express themselves. And so as we worked with our families to, show them and teach them how to navigate the school system, how to support, academically at home, we are really, basing our programming off of that. And so those are some of the things that really surprised me, as I'm building this venture out here in New Orleans.
Let's go a little tactical. As we think about the balance between your financial models, share whether they're both for-profit, nonprofit, how are you building that? And when you're serving communities that in many cases are under-resourced, how do you manage, balance, a financial model which might include some type of fee or is B2B, and actually doing the heart work of like serving our communities?
I love that, the heart work. So for Nurturing Roots, we are a nonprofit organization. We are fully, immersed in New Orleans, and our model, thinking about our parents, they're suffering from what's called time poverty, and oftentimes as educators, we think, parents don't want to show up. They don't care, but the reality is we are all suffering from time poverty. That includes transportation barriers, that includes food insecurities, that includes just not being able to show up fully. And so for ourselves, we wanted everything to be free. And Lord knows, I just would love to give everything out for free, especially, to our families who need it so desperately. But we had to scale back and really, think about sustainability and how we could be sustainable and offer our services for other families in the future. And so for us, we came up with the sliding scale model, and so parents are able to pay what they can. Our tutoring services are also in that sliding scale model as well, and we focus on grants that are tied to impact. And so for us, again, as we're building, we're still, trying to fill out, how we can best serve our families, but thinking about sustainability and like reimagining what sustainability is, because sustainability is equity. It is being able to serve not just this group of parents and families and community, but also thinking about the families that we want to serve, so that we can be sustainable. So that's how we, have created our model.
So for me, we have a health and wellness app. Again, you download the app in the App Store. It's free for the first 30 days. After 30 days, $40 for 90 days or $100 for the year. So that's our model. It's relatively inexpensive. I get this question a lot because we focus on the Black community. I think that also or people always assume that we're also focusing on underserved or low-income Black communities. But the fact of the matter is the disparities are across the board, no matter your education or income level in the Black community. So we start where there's a great need, and there's also capacity to pay. We do that for a couple of reasons. One, just to get traction and get the product off the ground. And once we have enough data on our platform, then we can leverage that to monetize and be able to make the platform more accessible to those who maybe aren't in a position or aren't interested in paying for access to an app, but maybe interested in access to some of the values that we present there. I also think that people can afford certain things because we're spending money on other aspects of life that aren't promoting health. Right? Everybody's at the club. I see them everybody's out for Mardi Gras. We got the money. I mean, I hear it, but at the same time, I think we need to have some real conversations about where we're putting our money and what we're prioritizing in our community as part of the problem. But yeah, that's our model, direct-to-consumer subscription. Eventually, we will figure out a way to kind of monetize the data with the community. So our vision for that is, so each community will get a health score, right? So each individual on the platform gets a health score between 0 and 1,000, and it changes in real time depending on how you change. So if you go on a run or a walk one day, your score goes up a few points. If you get 2 or 3 hours of sleep, your score goes down. Based on those changes, we make recommendations for how you can improve, as well as connected with healthcare providers and experiences to help elevate that score. All of that data goes into what we call the Black Electronic Health Record, which is a real-time database of all of our user health insights. And so we'll see the average health score in New Orleans compared to the average health score in Houston and the average health score in Atlanta. And be able to compare and contrast these. And that's really where cities, states, just any stakeholder that's interested and has a vested interest in improving health in a particular community might be interested in having access to that aggregate data. So then let's say the city of New Orleans wants to pay for access to the New Orleans Health Score report. We'll go to the community and say, hey, are we open to New Orleans having access to this aggregate data? The community says, yes, okay, how much are we charging? Right, so then we take some of that money and we invest in improving the community in the ways that we know the community needs to be improved, right? Independent of whatever the city plans to do with the anonymized data. Because I really believe that all the solutions to the problems that exist in communities already exist within the communities. We just need to build capacity for them to do that, such as capital.
Thank you for that. And that's the question I want to go to next as we think about capital for your venture. And yours is a for-profit, right?
For-profit.
Okay. What has the journey been like as you have tried to secure capital support, philanthropic and or venture or even loan access, just lines of credit? What is it like here and being based in New Orleans? I know you talked a little bit about your funding mainly coming from outside of New Orleans. Let's dig a little deeper into why that may have happened. Do you feel like there's just a lack of dollars to be invested in Black founders, or what's it been like, and how can we think about solutions for the future?
Yeah, so you're saying a lack of dollars in New Orleans to be invested in the Black founders, or just you talking about in general?
Both, but I want to talk a little bit about New Orleans too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as New Orleans goes, I've gone through most of the accelerator programs that are in the city. So Idea Institute, kind of like their pre-accelerator program, I did that in summer 2022. Then the following year was selected for the Idea Fuel program that came with the $15,000 investment grant. And I pretty much talked to everybody in the city that was writing a check, and I told them my vision, and one organization, Idea Institute, wrote a check, and that was my first round of asking in the city of New Orleans. I'm sure everybody's still watching me build. And the fact of the matter is, every person, wherever they live, every investor, wherever they live, they're an individual with a particular thesis, with particular attitude around what's possible for certain businesses. And just so happens that most of the ones here don't see the vision that I have. That's okay, right? There are tons of unique individuals throughout the entire world who may see the vision that I have and want to invest in that. I do think there's one particular aspect of funding in New Orleans or Louisiana. I forget what the fund is called. During COVID, tons of states got a bunch of money to invest in underrepresented founders, and so a lot of them got these funds, $10 million, $20 million. I don't really feel like any of that money has been deployed in the city to underrepresented founders. That's the only thing that I think is kind of confusing. Because who are you going to write the checks to? The money's just sitting there, to my knowledge. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, if you want to raise more money and you're an underrepresented founder, you're going to have to talk to more people than someone who's not, or find different types of money to raise.
Natasha, what about the philanthropic journey?
So for Nurturing Roots for myself, it has been beautifully complex. And I'll kind of speak to the complex side of it, because we have a very unconventional venture. It's not techie, it's human-centered, right? It's family-centered. And so trying to convince funders of the problem that they know about, and also while I'm credible enough to solve the problem, has been really complex. But I must say that with 4.0, they were our first investors helping us to build out our program, and then Camelback coming in and being our very first venture to pour funds into our organization has been transformative. And so it has confirmed just a few things for our team, that it's needed, and it's worthy, and as I'm all things education, right? And so I'm new to the nonprofit space, so it's navigating all of these different relationship building, the terms and things like that. But it's been invigorating. And I think another thing that has really surprised me and really, I don't know, it's just the relationships, the families, the partnerships that we are, strengthening. That has been really, that's a form of, the social capital And so oftentimes we're looking for the financial, but here, we have those relationships that we're building. And like I said, it's a very unconventional venture, but, we're dealing with human capital. And so for us, it's about healing our children, healing our families, and ensuring that they are able to, go out and be their best self, their most greatest self, so that they can thrive in the world. So it's been complex, but it's been beautiful at the same time. And so we're just really eager to continue building and growing, and the donations are coming in, things like that. That's empowering, and that keeps us going. So
I just want to add one more tactical point. So when I reached out to our developers, a company called Dackety, they're based in Zurich, Switzerland, right? Who'd have thought? I emailed them in the summer of 2020. Over the next 2 years, I was in my master's program, and I knew how much it cost to have them develop our app, $250K, but I didn't have $250K as a graduate student. And so I asked them what they were willing to give me. So they let me use the app with 50 students as a part of a pilot program. That was our first ask. And we produced some results with that, which that's a key theme of how we ultimately continued to get money from Dackety over time. So we produced a pilot. That was interesting to them. Black Lives Matter movement is happening. They're like, okay, we can be a part of this organization that's focused on the Black community in America. That looks good for us. Okay, great. At the end of that year, I was like, hey, can we start working on developing an app? Like, well, it's going to cost you this much. I'm like, well, I don't have that much. What can we do? So we licensed just the health score algorithm and created an online health score assessment for $5,000. Right? That was our first payment to Dackety. We got 1,400 in-person health score assessments in 2023. All of that traction led to them investing $40,000 worth of technology into us. I haven't spent any money after the $5,000. And we got up to 800 users in the first half of the year, and then they invested $200K. Wow. So it's a combination of, I don't have the money to pay you, and results. And if what you're building, again, is big enough to where they feel like they can fit inside of it, they may, everything's negotiable. So, yeah.
I love that story. I often talk about we know we need financial resources to do the things we want to do, but a check is only going to get you so far. And so how are you innovative about how you think about building your ventures, and then also how are you building the social capital so people can put you in rooms and get you in spaces where others will see you also. As you think about wellness as an entrepreneur, and it's interesting, I'll share a little for me. I'm like, well, I need to go to the spa. Spa is not going to cure the issue that we have inequities and systemic inequities. What are the tenets that you're able to pour into your wellness piece, but what are things that sort of pull it from you? And I want to name that we had a great session this week virtually with Ify, who is founder of 04. And she reminded me that wellness is also your team. Like how well you've actually built your team and supported your team. Like sometimes founders are trying to get wellness through like going on retreats, and like they actually need to center on building a business and building a team that will allow them to be well. Right? That is actually part of wellness, having the right people on the right seats on the bus. So wondering how you think about wellness as a founder. Yeah.
So for Nurturing Roots, it's in our title, we nurture the roots. So not only for myself as a founder, but for my team as well, we ensure that the work isn't going anywhere. It's going to be right here. And so we are oftentimes trying to rush to solve the problem and trying to rush to fix the thing that needs to be fixed without, and sometimes we lose ourselves. For myself and my team, health and wellness is absolutely priority. It's sometimes no with a period is a full sentence, and boundaries, that is absolutely important. Our partnerships are very, very intentional. Partnering with organizations who focus on nutrition, and organizations who can center wellness as well. And so it's priority not just for myself because I have to live it, but it's also modeling it for my families and for my students, because this, like I said, the world is on fire. And so that looks like not just spa days, or that's taking time to breathe. You know, if you really think about it, we're actually holding, tension within our bodies. We, seldom, relax ourselves, so it's taking those moments to really just breathe. I think wellness is also remembering how far you've come and actually giving yourself permission to rest and breathe and remember, wow, 3 years ago, we were hustling, but now, I pray for times like this. So, I pray for, you get the reference, but I pray for times like this. And so it's pausing to really reflect on how far we've come and thinking about what the future looks like so that we can be sustainable in, getting to the future. So health and wellness is absolutely central for us.
Yeah, same for us. Obviously, we're building a health platform. And part of what I've learned over time of why health is so important, I think it's that longevity is the greatest indicator of progress of a society, right? How long people live well in a particular society is the best marker for, are you setting up society the right way? So the definition of public health is the art and science of prolonging life. But we can actually prolong life for a very long time now, or keep people alive even if they're not doing well. And so I modified the definition a little bit to it's prolonging the desire to live.
Wow.
The desire to live is the root of longevity, right? Because now we can leverage all of an individual's motivation to figure out how to navigate whatever they're facing in life, to remain here, not to miss out on any of the experience that they want to participate in. And last year, when I did this world record attempt, I really learned about the importance of inspiration and how it really, again, gives people more reason for being. And so that's really what I wanted to start with, because no matter what tactical things you can do or strategic things that you can do for your health, none of it's really going to matter, and you're more than likely not going to stay consistent with it if there's not this really strong North Star for why you're here and why you get up every day. I think it's the most important part of health. Actually, I know it is. And so that's really kind of what our company has shifted to. Our app is there, and we need the app because we can't improve what we aren't measuring. But our goal now is to, how do we help people find their communities, build their communities, find their purpose, build their purpose, and then evaluate the impact of that over time. So we just opened up a new space here in New Orleans called Bear Connect. The slogan is find your community, build your community at Bear Connect. It's a co-working space by day, wellness workshops and stuff like that by night. And you just have to be a member of Bear Health, have the app to get in. And my wellness now is really integrated into my life. It's not an additional thing that I do. I wake up in the morning, I meditate. That's probably the only individual thing that I do by myself, but meditation is really important. I pretty much meditate all day because I work so much all day that I gotta keep my nervous system relaxed. Otherwise, we're doing a lot, like you're saying, and the work is always there. But every Sunday morning, I meet up with my run club, and we run, and we're in community, and that's promoting my health. But it's not a chore. I look forward to going to my run club community. I started a yoga club and a HIIT workout club, and basically my whole life is a health club at this point. and I encourage people to do it, but that's the solution. It really is, because in order to stay consistent on these things, you need to have a desire for what you want to achieve. Second, you need to have some sort of time-bound test of it. Right? So if you're trying to run more, you need to sign up for a 5K in a few months, just so that there's a little bit of pressure, right? And then you need, most importantly, a community of people to do it with, either people that are already where you're trying to go, or who are also on the same level in pursuing that together, because it just makes it easier, and it doesn't feel like an additional aspect of your life. Because if health is an additional thing, then what are you doing the rest of the time?
As you look out, I'm coming to my last question. Let's see if we have questions in the audience. As you look out, what does success look like for your venture? Venture focused, but how is the world different? Because you and your venture exist.
I think for me is really like seeing the progress on a collective level with the health score report. So we started tracking the collective health score of our users in December 2024. And for about 7 to 8 months straight, the average score among all of our users went up by about a point each month. Nothing has been more like encouraging for me as a founder in this entire journey. Every time I talk about it, I get chills. Than seeing that progress report go up every single month and watching and witnessing when we do different things, we roll out different challenges or we see different changes in the city, and we get to see how it's impacting it so that we can then strategize for how we can improve that. So I would say just like watching that average health score get into the 800s. Oh, that's probably a little too high. Anything above 680 is considered excellent on our app. And so my goal is to get the entire Black community to excellent health. Right? One of my students, he shared a pretty interesting insight. He said he feels like the healthcare system gets people to good, right? So we have poor, fair, good, very good, and excellent. He said he feels like the healthcare system gets people to good, which they probably can just get people to fair, if they're being fair. But the healthcare system isn't designed to get people to maximum health. Why not? Something to think about.
Money.
You got to say it out loud.
Yeah, I have to say it out loud. So for ourselves, what it looks like, and because we are a nonprofit, measurement is a little, it's a little tricky. We deal with humans, and so for ourselves, as we're working toward solving the problem and reimagining how we can solve the problem for school push out and parental and educator relationships, that looks like, for specifically, increase in enrollment for parents by 50%, increase in our by 50% for our student enrollment into our literacy programs. That also looks like a reduction in suspension rates in the city of New Orleans and specifically for us, we're aiming for 3%. And so success is, it's measured a little bit differently for us because we're human-centered. But it is seeing our children thrive. It's the conversations that we hear because data tells a story. And it's not just numbers, but it's also, the stories we hear, the conversations, how people show up into different spaces. And so for our families, we are wanting to see them thrive. We want to see our parents show up enthusiastic, building those relationships. So ultimately our babies can thrive and go on to be their best self. The literacy gap closed, amongst African American students, Black and brown students, against their white counterparts. There is a huge literacy gap, and it has been like that since the early 80s. It has not closed, and so that looks like slowly closing in on that gap, building the love for reading.